Welcome to the podcast, Badass Mother Hustler, where the grit, stress, and the beauty of motherhood and entrepreneurship meet. We'll share the realities and stories of what it takes to make it all work and still be a badass mother. Now here's your host, Maddie Yaka.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today I am so excited to talk to badass mother hustler Nicki Witek, and she is the mom to Marissa 28 and Landon 17, and she is the owner of Wellspring Business Solutions. Welcome.
Correct. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I am so grateful to my second cousin, Avery, for introducing us.
Yes. So Avery and I used to do some work together, and we became friends even after we stopped working together. So he was the one that connected us. So I'm thankful for that.
Can you tell everyone a little bit about you and your family and where you all live?
Yeah. So obviously there's me. I'm married to my husband, John. We were not high school sweethearts, but we've known each other since high school. We also co-own another business together, a remodeling company. And then my daughter is 28, as we talked about. So she's married. So I do have a son-in-law. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Ted, he does too. And then my son Landon is 17. So he just finished his junior year of high school. So we're getting to the end. And then our dog Maddie, who's a 12-and-a-half-year-old black lab, but doing really well. She's a very energetic black lab. So I'm hoping we get to keep her for a lot longer.
Yeah.
And we live in Wisconsin. So I'm in Southeast Wisconsin, like right outside of Milwaukee. So about 30 minutes west of Milwaukee in a little suburb called Pewaukee.
Nice. So I was very excited to chat with you today because you have older children, and I am looking forward to hearing about what it's like to juggle a business from like the older children perspective.
Yes.
Does entrepreneurship run in your family?
Yes, actually, that's a good question. So both of my brothers have been self-employed. One still is. The other decided to go back into the corporate world. My dad was self-employed for a while. So wasn't intentional for me to kind of go the entrepreneurship path. But yes, it definitely is kind of in our DNA.
Yeah, and I can't wait for everyone to hear what gave you the push to go to the entrepreneurship path. So I guess, can you tell everyone all the way back to the beginning before you had your business, what you were doing?
Yeah. So I kind of worked in the corporate world in a number of different positions. But I think where the change happened, I started working in the promotional products industry, which is how Avery connected us. And I was doing sales for a while, and I got burnt out, basically. It's a very volatile industry. I love it. And a lot of my clients are still in that industry. But I was burnt out, and we talked about this a little bit. There was an instance where, so the company I was working for actually closed its doors. And so I was kind of forced to make a very quick decision. And I had an interview with the company. I ended up working for them for like 6 or 7 months. But one of the pivotal moments for me was when we were talking about compensation and vacation and all this stuff. The owner of the company said to me, well, I came in with like 3 weeks of vacation, right? But when you have kids, and my kids were younger at the time, right? It really gets burned up really quickly, right? So he wanted to give me 2 weeks. Yes. Yeah. Somebody gets sick, and then like, it's just that the roller coaster of then somebody else gets sick, and then I get sick, and you burn it up really quick. So they wanted to give me 2 weeks of vacation, and I negotiated for a whopping 3. And then, yes, thank you so much. And then the owner of the company said to me, well, just so you know, we also cap our vacation time at 3 weeks. So kind of like this light bulb went off, and I was like, so I could work for you potentially for the next 20 years and never have another day off, And so when my kids were young, I was like, that's not going to work for me. But again, it was pivotal for me because I'm like, why is this person determining the path of my life, right? And I know it seems trite when I say the path of my life, but it's the
But
freedom
it's
and flexibility.
true. Yes, the freedom, flexibility, it's crazy. Like you were gonna go into a job and you already negotiated the feeling of how many days off you get for your
Right.
life.
Right. And there was no like flex time policy or anything like that. So again, like I took the job because basically the company I was working for was closing its doors. And so I'm like, well, I have to have something, right? Um, so I ended up staying there for, I think it was 6 or 7 months. But when I wasn't working, I basically decided that's it. Like, this is the last time that someone is going to basically put me in a box and say, here's what your life is going to look like. Right. So I started building my business, and because I had been in the promotional products industry for so long, I was really well networked and I knew a lot of people like Avery. And so I decided that I would start more of like a VA, a virtual assistant business, right? Where I would be assisting promotional products companies with pretty much anything under the sun that they needed, right? I just wanted to get work and I wanted to be self-employed and I wanted to be at home. And so that's kind of where it started.
At that time, how old were your kids?
So let's see. They were like, my daughter was in high school and my son would have been, so I've had my business for 8 years. So like 10, 9 and like 17 or 18, something like that. So
What was it like to have two kids at that point, have a full-time job, and also be starting like a side hustle that you were going to try to go full-time with?
very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I think my thought process going into it was, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out, and then I go back to a corporate job. But knowing if I had to go back into a corporate job, I know the things that I would and wouldn't accept for myself, right? But that wasn't the case. It's been 8 years now, and it's grown and it's evolved and changed and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, so again, it started as a virtual assistant company. Things were going really, really well. I got to a point where I had no more bandwidth. But one of the interesting things that happened with my clients was they started asking me to do like marketing related activities. So if you know anything about like the virtual assistant world, it's kind of admin. It's you're kind of a jack of all trades, sort of. And I know there's VAs that specialize in certain things, but that wasn't me. I just kind of threw my hat in there and I was like, hey, I'll do whatever you want me to do, right? But one of the things that they started asking me to do is, hey, I really know I need to do email marketing. I know I need to be doing social media content. I just don't have the time to do it. So what kind of happened naturally or organically was I said, sure, I'll do that. Right. I always had like an aptitude for writing. I was really good at English, like in high school and all that kind of stuff. So I started doing social media content and management and doing email marketing. And I ended up taking a course and getting email marketing certified. And so I was just kind of doing those couple things for those clients. And then I ended up phasing out some of that virtual assistant work because two things, like I was having fun doing the marketing piece. And because I kind of came from a marketing world with promotional products, I really liked that. And B, my clients were getting results. And I was like, oh, this is fun and it's working. Like I should focus on this. So I ended up pivoting and just really focusing on just some of that marketing piece of things. And then I kind of got to the point where, again, I had no more bandwidth and I was like, now what? Like the whole point in kind of being self-employed was to have freedom and flexibility. And I'm like, well, if I want to grow, I either have to work a lot more hours to make more money or figure out a different way to do this. So, a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to develop into like an agency model. So I hired a team and I added new services. And then I basically hired specialists in all of those areas. So I could expand on my services and become more full service versus just doing email marketing and social media. So now we offer search engine optimization, website design, paid advertising, Google business profile management, kind of runs the whole gamut. So again, I never went into this with the intention that this was what it was going to look like, but it just kind of evolved over time, and it's been really exciting.
It's so awesome to see how businesses grow and just what they end up being, because you never really know. When April and I started our real estate business, we just thought that it was going to be the two of us and we were going to do it. And then it's been 4 years and life happens and things go on. And we were like, okay, we need some help. And we got our little sister to join the team with us. We helped her get licensed. And like at the beginning, that was never in the cards. It's just cool to see how a business grows.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you start out with thoughts of what you think it's going to be, like you just mentioned, and then how things change over time, and you kind of just go with the flow, right? And I think that's the point of being a business owner is ideally you want growth, but I'll be honest, I never went in with like a plan, right? It was just like, I need to get out of corporate. I'm going to do something, and now here I am, right? So yeah,
You're like,
it's
I'm going
pretty
to be in charge of my own 9 to 5 life now, even though it's probably not 9 to 5, and you get to choose when and where. Like when you started your business, was it from your house or
yeah.
did you rent a space or?
No, I've always been at home. I have no desire to rent an office. I just, there's never been a need. My team is kind of all over the country. So, I mean, essentially, there's just no reason to have that kind of overhead. And I mean, let's be honest, like working in my yoga pants is kind of nice.
It's awesome. Some
Yeah,
days if I'm not meeting with clients or whatever, I'm like in my PJs till noon
yeah.
because no one has to see me on the computer until 12:30 or
Right,
whatever.
right. Or like you have, sometimes you have the intent of like getting ready, and like, because I work from home, I'll sometimes just sit down on my computer at 7 a.m. and all of a sudden I'm like, it's 2 p.m. and I'm still in my pajamas, but so be it.
And
That's
then
the glory of it.
yeah, and then at that point I'm like, I don't think I'm seeing anyone today, so I'm not going to bother to put on a full face of makeup.
Yes. Yes. But although I do try to sort of get ready, because I feel like from a mindset manner, it does kind of help me a little bit. And I'm not talking like full on getting ready, but changing my clothes is important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Just sort of like making myself look better, because I think it just makes me feel better. And from a productivity standpoint, I do try most days to kind of get ready and everything. So
Now, I thought it was cool when I reached out to you. I got an email kicked back that you were traveling for your son's baseball.
yes.
And
Yeah.
I just love how you're able to do that and also have your business. So, can you talk about how the two of those weave together?
Yeah. So my son is 17 now, but he's been in basically all the sports his whole life, right? And so he does play his regular high school season, but he then also has his summer travel baseball league. So um I honestly don't know. I shouldn't say I don't know. There's probably no way that I would be able to commit to that personally, or give him the opportunity to be able to do that if I had a traditional 9 to 5 office job, right? So not only does it give me the freedom and flexibility to be able to work from anywhere, right? Like I can travel, but I'm also, I can take my computer with me and I'm not going to miss a beat. But on the other hand, again, like I said, it gives him the opportunities to do the things that he loves without me like telling him he's got to sacrifice that because mom and dad can't take you. So that's huge. And again, I don't see how that would be possible if I didn't have my own business, or, for anyone else, if you're a hybrid or work from home. It just, I think in this day and age, it's really important from a mom from being a mom, right? And all the things that our kids are involved with, to just be involved and be there and not miss out on that stuff. And so I'm so grateful for that, even though it's a huge commitment.
It is. It is. But that is wonderful. My parents had their own business and it wasn't super, super flexible because it was a seasonal business. And me being the oldest of 8, I didn't really get the chance to play sports until middle school or high school. And I didn't do travel sports. That's when things started becoming popular because my mom said, she's like, hey, who's going to take you?
Right.
Because
Exactly.
they're super busy with the business and the other smaller kids. So I guess sometimes it depends on the type of business for
Oh,
the
absolutely. Yeah.
flexibility.
And I think, well, like with you in real estate and with me that I can do anything remote, when I knew I wanted to start a business, I knew that it had to be something that allowed me to be able to work from anywhere whenever I want, right? So it was never going to be like a brick and mortar or something like that. It had to be something that was going to allow me that freedom and flexibility. And this is where it took me. So
And that's same here because I just wanted to make sure if I did have to bring my daughter, because when I started real estate, she was like 8 months old. If I did have to bring my daughter with me to the office for something, is the office cool with that? Was it a good vibe or is it more of a stuffy office where they would be like, you're a realtor. Why are you bringing your kid? Which this office is not like that at all, which is why
yeah.
we switched to this
Yeah.
office.
Yes. Well, it's so true, right? It really depends on the employer. And I think things are starting to kind of turn in a better direction where I hate bringing up COVID, but it really, as bad as it was, it did open up a lot of opportunities for people and caused employers to kind of take a look at what are our policies and should we be more flexible. And so I think that's been good, not just for moms, but just, corporate jobs in general, as employers, have gotten more understanding of people have lives. And if there's something that you can do and it's get done at 7 o'clock, does it matter? I mean, unless you're in a call center and you have to be available, on the phones between 8 and 5. But I mean, most of what I do can be done at any time, as long as it's meeting the client deadline. It can be done whenever.
Yeah,
So
which is great.
yeah.
It is also pretty awesome that you just don't have one business, you have 2 businesses. So can
Yes.
you like when we talked on the phone, everyone, Nicki and I are just cracking up because we are more similar than we thought. So what was this other business you have going on?
So we're about a year in. So my husband and I last year started a remodeling company. So he's been in the industry for 20 plus years. He had his own custom home building company for 15 years. And then he moved into the corporate world for like 6.5 years doing construction project management. And last year, while I was on the road with my son at a baseball tournament in Indiana, he called and said that he lost his job. And so at first I felt really guilty because I wasn't there to support him and talk through it. But I'm very much like a planner, right? Like, what are we going to do? We need a plan. We got to figure this out. So it was good that we were separate. So he had time to kind of decompress. And then when he came back home, we sat outside on our deck and I was like, what do you want to do? You project manager jobs in the construction industry are a dime a dozen. So he could probably have gotten a job the next day, to be honest. But he had been, while he was working as a project manager in an employee role, I recognized that he kept saying, I really miss working with my hands. I really miss seeing like the fruits of my labor. And so I said to him, all right, why don't you do that then? Why don't you just start your own thing? And so we started, it's called Lake Country Repair and Renovate. And Lake Country is kind of the area we live in. And so we're a year in and it's been amazing. Quite surprised. Again, it's kind of the same like logistics of when I started my business. It's like, well, let's see what happens. And it's been good and it's been successful. And so, but I think part of that is because I've been in business for 8 years. And so I know how to navigate some of those things. Like he's really good at what he does. Like he's great at building and he's great at the vision and all that kind of stuff. But more the operations and administration and all that kind of stuff is where I do really well. So I handle that portion of the business and customer service and all of those kind of things. And he's out doing estimates and meeting with clients and working with our trade partners on design and all that kind of stuff. So not to say it's always easy, but now we're a year in. So I think I've got it down and it's a pretty well-oiled machine at this point. And most days I can manage both of them and it's okay. There's some days where I'm like, right. But I knew, and I don't think that this would have been successful if I wasn't a part of the business. And I don't mean that to toot my own horn. I'm just saying we each have our own strengths, right?
Yes.
And so general contractors, which is what we are, sometimes get a bad rap because their communication is bad, or like I said, they're really good at the building part, but the communication
they're not the desk people. They're
right.
not the send the bills people. My husband had a landscaping business right out of college for 7 years. And when we moved into our house, you know, I said to him, because we're splitting bills and doing all that, I'm like, okay, like beginning of the month, time to pay some bills. And he's like, oh, I have to send out like the bills for the business. I'm like, what? So yeah. I was like, all right, I'm going to be the computer person, like on top of teaching. And I sent out the bills that I could. I just was like, hey, how much is each lawn? And I billed the lawns monthly and he did everything else because I didn't know like what to charge for that. But yeah, I feel like the hands-on guys and women, they're definitely not super desk people.
Right. And that's okay, right? Like stay in your lane, do what you're good at, and then let other people handle the other stuff. And that's kind of like with my agency model too. It's like I knew I wanted to expand, but I'm like, I can't do good and learn SEO and website. There's literally no way I could do it. I wouldn't be good at it, right? And then that basically is going to make my business fail. So I hired the people that I knew could do it, right? And it's kind of the same thing with our remodeling company. It's like, you do what you're good at, I'll do what I'm good at, and it's been great. It's a learning experience, of course, because I in all honesty, I have no experience in the construction industry. So sometimes he'll show me things or draw out sketches or measurements, and math is not my forte.
Yeah.
So like that kind of stuff, I look at him like, you know, a deer in headlights. I have no idea what you're talking about, right?
You're like,
but
can you repeat that for the third time?
But I guess it's more about learning to ask the right questions. You don't need to know it, but like from a customer aspect, at least I know now when they're asking questions, I know kind of what to ask, right? And there are times where I'm, you know, texting him like, so-and-so asked about this. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, so it's been cool. And it's actually kind of sparked a fire in our son to potentially go into the trades because he's got one more year, right? And
yes,
so now
I forgot we talked about that on the phone. And that's what I discussed on another episode with someone. It's just really, really awesome to see our kids see what we're doing and have them show an interest in it.
Yeah, because he sees what we do every day, right? And so, and he's old enough to understand what we're doing, and so he's intrigued by it. And the benefit to that is he's got a built-in business that he could join after he graduates, should he choose to. But we're you know, again, we kind of talked about earlier is we're in that point of life now where we've done the younger things, where we've taught him to tie his shoes and how to make toast and all this stuff. And now we're in the phase of we have to help guide him as to what he wants to do for the rest of his life. And I think we're just in the boat of whatever you're passionate about and you love. If that's college, that's fine. If it's not, and you want to go into the trades, that's completely fine. And I think we talked about, if you change your mind, that's okay too, right? Because this isn't what I've always done. So it's an interesting phase of life we're in, and the conversations and the things we're teaching him now are so different than what we taught him when he was 5 and 10, and so
Yeah,
yeah.
that's something that I will have to think about and look forward to in like 10 years.
It comes way faster than you think, because I can't believe that I'm at this point, right? Is like, am I going to be an empty nester? Is he going to be staying here? Is he going off to college? Right. So it's kind of a sad and happy time. And I try not to focus too much on the fact that this phase of life is coming to an end. I try to focus on it's just another part of life that we're in. And it's our job to kind of just guide and direct him and support him in whatever he decides to do.
Yeah. So since you have two businesses, what were some of the struggles or obstacles you overcame with being a mom and running two businesses, or when you first started the first one?
I mean, ideally, I think honestly, like financially, that was hard, because I went into it without a lot of financial backup for my business, right? It was more so of the challenge was I have to make this work, because if it doesn't, we'll go broke. So it's a good challenge to have, because it's very motivating, right? So at that point where we were at, there wasn't a large reserve of money, right? So for me, it was a challenge, but it was also motivating, because there is no question that this has to work, right? Because
Yeah, your back is against the
right.
wall. So it's you're doing it, or
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing
So
it. You're doing
I
it, or
didn't
you're
want
doing
any,
it.
yeah, I didn't want anyone to suffer or struggle because of a decision I made. So it was quite the motivator, but also, like I talked about earlier, it was very scary. I even said, like, all right, worst case scenario, I'll still build my business and I'll go work at the flower shop down the street if I need to for the time being, right? Like, there wasn't ever a question in my mind of what happens if this doesn't work. It's going to work, but what is that going to look like? And I think those were the challenges of navigating. And to be honest, we still have times where it's like this, right? You're in real estate, it's like, whoa, so I think with both businesses, that's the challenge. It's the ebb and flow of being on your own and not having not counting on a steady paycheck coming in every 2 weeks, right? And that actually forces you to be much more financially savvy, because, sometimes you look at your bank account and you're like, look at all that money. But then you have expenses, and, and then you got to pay yourself and all of that other stuff. So, ideally, I think it was financially. I wouldn't say I would highly recommend going in feet first unless you have a reserve, but for me, it worked out.
I feel like you and I are the same person the more and more we talk, because yes, for me as well, I just pulled the plug on teaching and I got into real estate. And with real estate, you're not getting paid on a timely schedule. And yeah, I started the business right away, but it wasn't until a few months later that I saw my first paycheck, and it was slowly building up until I got more clients.
Yep.
It's scary,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our remodeling business is probably similar to like real estate, right? Where we get a project and it's great and we get a deposit, but then we don't get paid again until the end. So we have to make that money, so yeah, very, very similar. But
Yeah, it's funny being in Facebook groups for real estate and seeing people talk about like their commission checks or whatever and how large they are because they had just like started in real estate. Whereas like whenever I get a commission check, I don't really like register how much it is, because that's not really how much I'm being paid,
right.
because it's exactly what you said. I'm taking out for taxes, I'm taking out for expenses, and just gets whittled down to what I am actually getting paid.
Right. Yeah. It's so funny. I just had this conversation with a restaurant owner the other day, and they think, oh, you own two businesses. You must be rich. And I'm like, no, not necessarily. I mean, we're not doing bad by any means. Right. But it's not, and quite honestly, we did not go into this to get rich. We wanted to both be self-employed and do what we loved. And if that brings in an income and helps our family, great. Right. But yes, you have to be very cognizant of, like, when you get a big check, it's like, okay, now take this out for this and take this out for this and take this out for this. And so, yeah, it's a learning lesson.
It is learning because, like I said before, I was a teacher, so I got paid bi-weekly, and then I got into real estate, and it was during 2020, so things were crazy. And when we were able to get a lot of buyers under contract, I was like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. Oh, is this what it's going to be like from here on out? And it wasn't, because come the November of 2021, so going into the winter of 2022, it just like came to a grinding halt for April and I at that point, because interest rates had just kept climbing and it kept people from wanting to buy houses. And I was like, oh shit, I don't even know when. I'm like, I don't even know when the next closing's going to be, because we don't even have anyone under contract. Whereas like when we started, we were consistently putting people under contract. And that was the first time that I was like really, really scared. And I never felt like that in my life. So I'm like, I got into this so I could spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
And like, what am I don't want to go back to teaching and put them in daycare 5 days a week. So I just figured it out. And, thank God for my husband too. And I got a job at a restaurant, never done a restaurant job before, but I thought, yeah, Andrew can come home from work an hour early because he's self-employed. And then I'll go to the restaurant a few days a week and try to make some money. And luckily we got through those rough couple months. But
yeah, you learn how to navigate, right? You learn to have to be savvy and figure it out and kind of wiggle your way through. But as you're talking, I was thinking about something, and this was kind of one of those light bulb moments for me too, is when I really started to kind of fill up my pipeline with, a good amount of clients where I had recurring revenue every month for my marketing business. I realized like I have uncapped earning potential, right? No corporate job is going to say you're getting this amount every 2 weeks and then maybe a 2% raise at the end of the year, right? It's like, if I want to make more money, I can just go out and sell and get new clients, right? So that's the benefit of that, is yes, there are those times where it's like, crap, this is scary. I lost a client, or we didn't close a job, or whatever. But there's always more opportunity out there where it's not somebody else telling you like, here's what you're going to make this year, right? Like, it's not like that. So
I love that. That's what is awesome, that it's just uncapped. You could go to the moon.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. And there's months where I'm like, yay. And there's other months where I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. The ebb and flow is what seems to be what one of the common threads is with these entrepreneur mom podcasts.
Yes.
The ebb and flow of business.
Week, that's for sure.
No. Entrepreneur moms definitely have like a certain type of mindset, and that's how we all ended up where we're at.
Well, and that's the thing, I think. But like, I think inherently women are like that, right? They can take on a lot and be successful. And this is not to knock men by any means, don't get me wrong, right? But I think inherently that's our DNA, right? Like, we can do all things. And I think we talked about, though, in our conversation on the phone, was sometimes, though, I think we have to learn when we need to say no as well, right? Like you and I were saying, like, I do all this and I do all this and I run a business and I do this. And sometimes I think we just need to like put the brakes on and say, I need help, or say no to something, right? Like there's times like I've learned in the last year, like just even for social things where I'm like, nope, like I'm feeling overwhelmed and I just need to like decompress, right? And so I've gotten better at learning like it's okay to say no sometimes, right? Or if you have a client that's not a good fit, whether it's in real estate or what we do, right? It's like you don't have to be everything to everyone.
I run an entrepreneur moms group, and last night we had one of our meetings, and that's what we were discussing is how we all constantly feel like we're go, go, go. We must keep going. But the one lady spoke up and she's like, I did that for 10 years until I finally was like, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't feel it doesn't make me feel good. And like we talked a lot about burnout, but I'm just thankful for my husband because he will be like, yo, you got so much going on this week. Why do you keep piling stuff on top of your plate? And I'm like, good point. Good point.
Yes.
I need you to wake me up.
I think you have to kind of decide like what's a necessity and that's what's not, right? Like there's all these events and I could literally go to networking events 6 days a week if I wanted to, right? But I've decided like I'm going to pick and choose the things that are important to me and social events or whatever it may be, right? It's like just deciding like what is important, what's too much, and it's got to be a healthy balance because I've done that to myself, right? Where I felt like guilty if I said no, right? When no one was going to be mad at me, but in my mind, I'm like, if I don't go, so and so will be upset, or someone will notice I'm not there, and I just decided, nope, I'm not going to worry about it, right? And take some things off my plate.
That's something that I have been doing more this year is saying no and just putting up boundaries. Whereas in the past, I was constantly doing it, going to it, saying yes. But with 2 little kids and a husband, and if I'm showing houses at night sometimes during the week, like I have to put up boundaries because then where's the family time? Then there's no family time because my business bleeds in sometimes to the evening.
Right. Exactly. So,
Yeah.
So I've gotten better at that in like the last year. That was kind of my unwritten New Year's resolution is just the word no. That simple.
Maybe I should put that on my vision board for next year. No, right in the middle. All right. Right now, we're going to switch to our rapid fire 5 and 5. So, what does your ideal chill day look like?
Ooh. Okay, that's a good question. So I bought a kayak last year and we live in a community that has a ton of lakes, right? So it's called Lake Country. So I bought a kayak last year and that is what I do. I just take my kayak on the lake and I chill. Sometimes I've gone by myself, I've gone with friends, I've brought my husband with me. Sometimes we'll kayak to the local restaurants on the lake and sit there, but that's my ideal day.
That's awesome to kayak to a restaurant on the lake. That sounds like
Yes.
a lot of fun. And
Well,
how
it's
close?
payoff, right? Like you're kayaking and like if the water's choppy and you're like, this is really hard. And you're like, but there's a burger on the other side of the lake.
I'm a burger gal too.
Yes.
Burgers and fries.
Yes.
What are you currently reading or listening to?
Well, this is gonna sound a little boring, but I listen to a lot of like marketing podcasts. So through American Marketing Association, I have a podcast I listen to through a organization that I subscribe to called Bright Local, and they're all things like local search engine optimization. So I'm always trying to learn, right? I have an SEO person that's amazing at what they do, but I always want to know. And that kind of stuff, marketing, especially digital, is always changing.
Mhm.
It never stays like the same. So I listen to a lot of marketing related podcasts.
You're not really a leisure reader or listener, no
I am
audio
not.
book?
I am not. I'm like self-diagnosed ADD. I'm not diagnosed, but I diagnose myself.
Yeah.
And like I'm a person that will sit down with a book and I'll read like a couple pages and then I realize like I'm a few pages in and I'm like, I have no idea what I just read. because I'm thinking about something else. So again, like I just recognize that in myself. And so I'm very more like auditory. And so that's why like podcasts and stuff are great because I can retain that information and pay attention. Whereas like a book, nope.
Yeah, to just sit might be hard.
Yes.
I
I like
like to
sitting and relaxing. I just cannot. I realized that I cannot sit and read a book.
Yeah. What's your favorite app or tool you use as an entrepreneur, mom, or both?
Oh my gosh. I use Asana for task management. I don't think I could do what I do without it just because I'm running two businesses, right? And so I used to have, believe it or not, I would have a notebook where I'd write down on a page all the things I needed to do. But then I would do that every day. And then I'd find like I'm flipping through like, where did I write that down? Where did I write that down? So I use Asana as my task manager. So that way every morning I log on and I look at all the things that I need to do today, tomorrow, other things that are upcoming. And that's kind of how I plan my day. And it's a lifesaver.
Is it a digital calendar?
No, it's like a task manager, basically. So you basically put in a task, name it, put a date on it. It has a calendar function, but you can say, due date, and then put it on there. So then when you log in, you can see all the things that you have to do and you can take notes, you can add attachments. So like if I'm doing email marketing and someone sends me a flyer, I can put in the task, I can put in the date that I need to work on it. I can put in the date that it's due to the client. I can add attachments, all that kind of stuff. So it keeps me like on the straight and narrow.
I will have to experiment with that.
Oh, you have to. And there's others that, it just depends. Like for me, there's something called Monday and there's a whole bunch of them that are out there. For me, just visually, the layout was easy for me. I've used other ones and I'm like, this for some reason in my brain is not like sticking. So that's the one that I tried out a few and this is the one that I like the best.
Awesome.
So it's Asana, Asana.
Okay, sweet. What's the song you blast the shit out of if entrepreneur mom life is too much for you that day?
Oh my gosh, you're going to laugh. Who sings this song? It's an old song. It's called Southern Cross. Oh my gosh, who sings it? It's old. It's probably from like the 70s or 80s.
If I heard it on the radio, would I know it?
I don't know.
I'll have to listen to it after this.
Hold on, I'm gonna look it up. Oh, Crosby, Still, Nash and Young, which is funny because it's totally not my era of music. I'm trying to see when it is from. Let me see really quick because now I'm curious because I don't even know when it was written.
Why do you like that song? What makes you want to just blast it?
Me feel good. Like it's just a really good song. Like the lyrics, the music, like it really like I'll turn it on in my kitchen and I will blast it and I'll like dance around my kitchen. My husband thinks I'm a weirdo, but yes.
I dance around the kitchen too, but I especially do that when I'm with all my sisters and we're at our parents and we're cleaning up and we're just like, Alexa, play 2000s hip hop. And we're just like jamming out. And
oh yeah,
our brother's like, what in the heck is going on? And that's
okay, I found it. Okay. 1982.
All right.
I was quite young when it came out, but I don't know. For some reason, it just like gets me in the feels. But it's not like a sad song. It's just like something that, I don't know, energizes me.
That's why I've liked asking this question because it's been very interesting to hear what people like to blast to make themselves feel good. And some of the answers have been slower songs, which was surprising to me because in order to pump myself up, I would never think of playing a slow song. So I love hearing everyone's answers.
I normally like on a daily basis, I'm mostly country. So it's again, it's not like my genre or style of music that I normally listen to. There's just something about it. So you'll have to listen to it.
Oh, I'm turning it on after this. Lastly, what's some advice you can give a struggling entrepreneur mom?
Oh man, how much time do we have? I think for me personally, like mindset is a big thing, right? Like there's days where I struggle with like selling. Like, I don't like prospecting, right? I don't like trying to go and get the next sale. Like, sometimes I'll have like a decent amount of clients and I get really comfortable. But I think when you get comfortable is when things start to get dangerous, right?
Yes.
So for me, honestly, networking has been big for me. I'm a marketer, but I don't do a lot of my own paid marketing. I am a people person, so I connect, and that's how I built my business. So a lot of it is referrals and people that, just pass my name along, or networking groups I'm in. I'm not like I'm going to get on the phone and call 50 businesses today. I hate it. And
Yeah.
like, people tell you, oh, you have to do that. And I'm like, I hate it. And I'll hate my business if I do that. So I think you just need to find kind of what you're good at and what you enjoy. And like, for me, the success of my marketing business has been just because I'm a relationship builder and I love people and I love connecting. And so that, I think, is really important. And I know some people, like, that's hard for people sometimes if you're an introvert, right? Like, I don't want to like go into a group, like 50 people sitting in a room and talk about myself, but you get more comfortable with it. And then like, those people have literally become my friends. And so it doesn't faze me anymore to get up in front of 60 people and talk about myself for 30 seconds. Right.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, like, just scheduling appointments with people, like just getting to know people one-on-one, is kind of my thing. Right. So, from a business perspective, from a mom perspective, I think I kind of hit on this before, is just knowing what your limits are, right? Is like, you don't have to say yes to everything. If you're feeling overwhelmed, then say no,
Agreed.
Yes.
So we are at the end of our episode. That was super fast. If people have questions for you or they'd like to reach out, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
So my email, so I'll spell my name because it's not, everyone misspells Nicki. There's 1,000 ways you can spell it. So it's Nicki, Nicki and it's Wellspring, WELL springbusiness.com. And then my website is the same. It's wellspringbusiness.com. I have an Instagram. It's Wellspring Biz Solutions with a Z. So you can find me on there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. And I hope that you have a fabulous day.
Thank you, Maddie. This was fun.
Woohoo. All right, everyone. I'm going to leave you with a quote. Believe in yourself. You are braver than you think, more talented than you know, and capable of more than you can imagine. And I will see you all next time.
Thank you for joining this episode of Badass Mother Hustler. If you loved this episode as much as we did, and it left you feeling inspired and empowered, give us a quick like and subscribe, and we'll invite you back to our next episode. And be sure to share us on your socials and visit our Instagram, Badass Mother Hustler Podcast. We'll see you next time.